Hare Krishna. Thank you. All right. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jasodhanandana Brajajanada Jana Jasodhanandana Brajajanada Jana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Rama Kunja Bihari Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Thank you everyone for coming. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritam Naram Cheva Narottamam Deva Sarasatam Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Jai, thank you everyone for coming. Today we'll be reading from the 10th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, chapter 51, verses 30 through 31. And the title of the chapter is The Deliverance of Muchu Kunda. 13. But we'll only be doing 13, I believe. Is that correct? Yes. That's pretty loud. Let's see. 10, 50. I inverted the numbers. I'm on 13 instead of 31. 30. Okay. Shushu shatam aviyalikam asmakam nara pungava swajama karma gotramva kathyatam yadirochete Shushushatam Aviyalikam Asmakam Nara Pungava Swajama Karma Gotramva Kathyatam Yadi Rochate Shushushatam Aviyalikam Asmakam Nara Pungava Swajama Karma Gotramva Kathyatam Yadi Rochate. Jaya, Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Jai. So word for word. Shushushhatam, who are eager to hear. Aviyalikam, truthfully. Asmakam, to us. Nara, among men. Pungava, almost imminent. Swa, your. Jama, birth. Karma, activity. Gotram, lineage. Va, and. Kathyatam, may it be told. Yadi, if. Rochate, it pleases. Translation and purport by the disciples of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Ki Jai. Translation. And Muchukunda Prabhupada. Muchukunda is speaking. King Muchukunda. O best among men, if you like, please truly describe your birth, activities, and lineage to us who are eager to hear. So he's talking to Lord Krishna. And purport says, when the Supreme Lord descends to this world, he certainly becomes Nada Pungava, the most eminent member of human society. Of course, the Lord is not actually a human being, and Muchukunda's questions will lead to a clarification of this point. Thus, the term Shushushatam, to us who are sincerely eager to hear, indicates that Muchukunda is inquiring in a noble way for his own and others' benefit. Text 31. Vayam tu purusha viagra aikshwakaha kshakshra bandavaha Muchukunda iti prokto yaovanashwa maja prabhu. Translation and purport by disciples of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Ki Jai. Translation for verse 31. As for ourselves, O tiger among men, we belong to a family of fallen Kshatriyas, descendants of King Ikshwaku. My name is Muchukunda, my lord, and I am the son of Yalvanashwa. Purport. It is common in Vedic culture that a Kshatriya will humbly introduce himself as a Kshatriya Bandhu, a mere relative in a kshatriya family. Or, in other words, a fallen kshatriya. In ancient Vedic culture, to claim a particular status on the basis of one's family relations was itself indicative of a fallen position. Kshatriyas and Brahmanas should be given status according to their merit, by their qualities of work and character. When the caste system in India became degraded, people proudly claimed to be relatives of Kshatriyas or Brahmanas, though in the past such a claim, unaccompanied by tangible qualifications, indicated a fallen position. Om Agyan Samanandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Shashumilitam Nena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitanyena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanshakapaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai, thank you everyone for coming. Jai, Hare Krishna, Mother Krishna, as usual. So thank you for always being here when nobody isn't. That way we won't have to talk to the wall. So thank you for that. And of course, Sevananda, of course, Prabhu, and our special guest who's coming recently, Aliona Mataji and Brindavini, and especially Manjali Mataji. Jai, thank you for coming. So as usual today, I'd like to start off this topic with a quote that sets the theme of what we'll be discussing today. So this quote is by, he's French, so it's probably Henri Frédéric Amiel. And he says, quote, "Every man is a priest, even involuntarily. His conduct is an unspoken sermon, which is forever preaching to others." End quote. Let me repeat that quote. Every man is a priest, even involuntarily. His conduct is an unspoken sermon, which is forever preaching to others. End quote. So in this regard, it should be pointed out that today's quote describes that everyone is a priest, a brahmana, or a preacher. Why? Because we're all involuntarily forced to preach by our conduct. Therefore, it is said, actions speak louder than words. So, in other words, becoming a preacher is inevitable. Becoming a noble preacher is optional. So let me repeat that. Becoming a preacher is inevitable. Becoming a noble preacher is optional. So Vaishnava Sevananda probably looks a little confused, so I'll explain that a little bit more. Okay, good. Oh, noble. Okay, you didn't hear the word noble. So, but we could still explain it. So another word for preacher is leader, right? Leader. A lot of times people say, I'm not a leader, right? Who in this room thinks they're not you could say a leader in the sense of being in the public? Who's not really feel like they're fit to be a public leader or inclined to be a public leader? So this is not inclined to be a public leader. Is that correct? Okay. Anybody else? Also, everyone's inclined to be a public leader. Okay, great. But for those who do feel that I'm not a leader in any sense, whether publicly or privately, but there's a nice verse from the Bible that describes a bad leader, actually, or a bad preacher, but it essentially says that everyone is a leader. So I'll read the quote. So, of course, another word for preacher is leader. So the Holy Bible in the book of James, chapter 3, verse 4 through 5, it says, quote, "Take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the captain wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boast. It makes great boast. End quote. So this verse from the Bible describes that our tongue is like the rudder, and it steers us where we want to go in life. But it talks about a proud preacher or leader. It makes great boast. So take the word leadership. Take the word leadership. The word leadership consists of two words, leader and ship. So if we were to relate this to this verse from the Bible, in other words, everyone is a leader, the captain of their ship, the body, with a rudder, the tongue, that steers us either to the island of our elevation or the iceberg of our degradation, depending on whether we contemplate words of wisdom or words of wrath. So therefore, this is why we read the Bhagavatam. Therefore, we try to cultivate all the good qualities. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatiya kenshana sarve gunis tatra samasate suraha. It describes that when we try to connect to Krishna to the best of our ability, then what's the result? Sarva gunis, all the good qualities. And all of these good qualities are meant to steer us toward the island of our elevation. And so, this is a very important point in this regard because previously I could speak for myself, I can't speak for others. But I could share from my point of view, and maybe it will help others because, there's a saying, just as one candle lights another candle and can light thousands of other candles, so one heart illuminates another heart and can illuminate thousands of other hearts. So whatever profound realizations others have illuminated with me, I'm sharing with you, and hopefully it may help you in your Krishna consciousness. It's not something that's coming from me. It's something that I'm very inspired from others. And so this is a very profound point, I think. Well, first of all, when I used to come to the Srimad-Bhagavatam in the past, I barely had any questions because unlike TV and movies, it wasn't as entertaining. Where's the CGI effects? So storytelling only goes so far. So therefore, you have no questions. But Gokulananda Prabhu, a brahmachari who lived here for many years, he made a very profound point to me. And he was probably, I'm grateful, criticizing me, but he said it's them. Instead of saying it's me, he says, them. And this is actually a technique Narada Muni used when he was speaking with King Prachini Barhishad. Narada Muni said, my dear king, once upon a time, there was a puffed up king. He was so arrogant, he didn't practice bhakti properly, yada, 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 yada. Then at the end of this story, the king says, that sounds a lot like me. Then Narada Muni was like, bingo. So this is sometimes a technique for devotees who are merciful, like Gokulananda Prabhu was merciful to me, that since we're basically completely entrapped by our false ego, that when we get any instruction directly, naturally, we become resistance. So Gokulananda, he told me one day, he says, whenever you ask somebody, do you have any questions about Krishna on the Srimad-Bhagavatam? Generally speaking, people will say, no, I'm good, like I would. So then he says something else. He says, whenever you ask somebody, do you have any questions on the latest gossip? Oh, yes, who, what, where, when, am I? And then I realized, oh, yes, this is me. I have no questions on the Bhagavatam, but I have questions very enthusiastically, have questions on all the details of the latest gossip. And so I can understand Krishna kicked me with the realization, oh, I can understand maybe he was criticizing me, but for my benefit, he know the false ego is too powerful, so he indirectly criticized me. And so this is one reason why you could say transform my life. You don't need to hear a long class or go through a long series of bhakti sastris. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Kor, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Even by one Lava Matra, that means one moment's association with a sincere devotee who has sincere intentions, who's not ruled by their ego, who's always trying to uplift up, even by one moment, they could change the trajectory of your life. And I'm very grateful for that. Of course, there's many devotees who changed the trajectory of my life. But there's also something now that I'm mentioning this quote that Gokulananda Prabhu said in regards to this Sadhu Sangha verse. Now, lava matra, it means basically a split second. Now, how powerful is a split second? Or can you say, in what way is a split second powerful? Can anyone say? Is it or isn't it? And if it is, in what way is a split second very powerful? Can anyone? Yes, anything can happen. Predominantly, Matsu just mentioned anything can happen in a split second. Anyone could lose their life. Anyone can become injured, etc. Mm-hmm. Yes, Vaishnava Sevinanda Prabhu was saying that by a split second, a thought could come to you in a split second. It can get you out of a very difficult situation. And that's Krishna's mercy, the super soul. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hridesha Arjuna Chisati. Krishna is the super soul within our heart. And for those who are sincerely trying their best, he will get us out of a lot of... I mean, that's why we're here, right? That's why we're here. And the purpose of staying here is so we could keep ourselves out of trouble. Any other points? No? Okay, so yes, a split second is very powerful. In the Olympics, somebody may say, oh, in relay races or sprints in track and field, somebody may congratulate the second place winner, the person who won the silver medal. Oh, you did such a good job. You only lost by a split second. It's not that much. No, a split second is so powerful that it determines victory and defeat, the gold medal and the silver medal. Nobody's ever like, oh, I only lost by a split second. I got the silver medal. No. They become very morose when they don't win first place. So a split second is very powerful. And along the point of Vrindavani Mataji, yes, a split second it could change your life, your whole life. Just like while you're driving, if you're inattentive, even for a split second, if you're texting while driving, or smoking while driving, or putting on makeup while driving. I think that goes on, right? People do that, all this stuff. Eating while driving, people do so many things. And it's actually, by one split second, you could get in a car accident. Or maybe a child may run in the street and you could harm that child. And it could change the trajectory of your entire life. So a split second, in so many ways, for the good and for the worse, is very powerful. So, as far as this verse is concerned, what Gokulananda says, this is regarding association with devotees. So Gokulananda Prabhu, he says something very powerful. I'm paraphrasing, because I'm a person of words. I like to kind of use things in a poetic way. He says that if we attentively, so a split second, if you're inattentive while driving, it could explain... change the trajectory of your whole life. So this is the importance of being attentive in Krishna consciousness in our devotional activities. So he says, if we attentively listen to the Vaishnavas, the holy name, and the Bhagavatam, even for a split second, that's known as quality time. But if we inattentively listen to the Vaishnavas, the holy name, and the Bhagavatam, even for thousands of hours, that's known as quantity time. So in the material world, when people say, I want to spend quality time with others, they're actually not spending quality time with others. They're spending quantity time. Quality time means yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatiya kinchana sarvir gunais. How to increase our gunas, our gunais, our good qualities. That's what quality time is concerned. And in every product that's made, it undergoes a process known as quality control. Quality control. And what does that mean? Does anyone know what that means, quality control? Quality control means that if a product is made, you have to try to increase the qualities. Nowadays, they decrease the quality so they'll sell more products. But previously, it was meant to increase the qualities. And how do they do that? They burn the product. They slam the product, they break the product, they put the product in cold weather. And what's more attractive, a product that endures for many years, or a product that breaks after only a few days or few months? What's more attractive? Yeah, one that endures. In much the same way we see Lord Jesus Christ. Why are these great saints so attractive? Because despite experiencing so much opposition, the quality of their character never broke into anger, into vengeance. So this is what devotee association is meant to. We're trying to increase our good qualities. And increasing good qualities doesn't necessarily mean hearing thousands of hours, only a split second for somebody who's sincere. So, while that little tangent was going on, let's get back on track, whatever it was. So the whole point is that Gokulananda told me, if you have any questions on Krishna, no. Do you have questions on the latest gossip? Yes. Who, what, where, when, and why? So this is an indication that our quality is very, what's the word? Very low. It's a low-grade quality. And so we're meant to increase our good qualities. And so this is a very important point as far as people who may say, I'm not a leader, I'm not a preacher. But as previously mentioned, we're all preachers involuntarily, right? We preach by our conduct, by our words. So this is a point I brought up to several devotees within the last few weeks. And they all agreed to this point. So there are many reasons why people say, I will not give a Bhagavatam class. I will not give a Bhagavatam class. Some reasons are I'm not pure enough, I'm not knowledgeable enough, I'm not eloquent enough, and I'm not extroverted enough. Therefore, I am not qualified to give a Bhagavatam class. But what is Bhagavatam? It's to glorify the devotees, right? To glorify the devotees. Now take the flip side of the coin. When people make us very angry, by Maya's influence, we're qualified to vilify others. So that's a very contradiction. I'm not qualified to glorify devotees, but I am qualified to vilify devotees. You actually need more purity to vilify devotees and glorify devotees. So the lesson is, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, he says in his bhajan, Amar Jivan, he says, I resist all pious deeds, but I'm very active and enthusiastic to perform wicked acts. So we should not be resistant and never neglect the opportunity to glorify devotees and try our best to resist the opportunity. We never leave any opportunity to vilify others, so why not take the opportunity to develop some happiness? Nobody ever becomes happy by arguing with each other, by fighting, only by glorifying. And there's many things could be said on that. So when I emphasize one point, that doesn't mean that there aren't nuances. There aren't many shades of gray. So this is one point that's to be emphasized. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he makes an important point in this regard in verification on this point. He says that if we do not hear about Krishna, yes, we may hear about Krishna, but if we don't speak about Krishna, then we will not learn anything about Krishna consciousness. That's very natural. When a child goes to school, naturally, if they're just hearing all day long, they won't learn anything. The teacher says you have to repeat what you hear. You have to repeat your ABCs, your 1, 2, 3. Same in college. They have oral exams. The teacher wants to know whether or not you actually hearing the material. Therefore, you have to speak it and teach it to yourself, to your classmates. In much the same way, we should never, when given an opportunity, and there are many opportunities, it doesn't have to be on the Bhagavatam class. We could do programs to share Krishna consciousness with others, do programs. But if hypothetically speaking, we're given an opportunity that maybe seem quote unquote in a public eye, we should never give up that opportunity. Why? Because this is why I share with one Mataji. Because I remember, she was also one devotee that says, yes, you should give Bhagavatam class. She was like, I'm not qualified, I'm not pure enough. Then there was some obstacle that came in her life. Then she was like, these devotees mistreated her. And then she was like, they're so arrogant, they're this and that. And of course, I didn't say anything to her at the time, but then a few weeks later, I shared her with this point. You're not qualified to glorify devotees, but you're qualified to vilify devotees. That's a complete contradiction. So she actually agreed with me. And of course, I shared it with her after the passion had, and she also saw Krishna's blessing in that situation, how because of this argument, it actually, she was transferred to a different service. And we were joking that Krishna, in order for Krishna to get things done, he has to do a whole Netflix Broadway production, a whole Netflix Broadway. He just can't, like we have in our heart, Krishna, I just want a different service. Can you just give me the different service without going through the whole drama and I have to see? But no, Krishna wants us to learn many different lessons through many different ways. So he does his whole, so she saw it as a blessing. So in this way, she had no animosity towards the devotees who were, you could say, mistreated her from her perspective. And I shared this point with her. Yes, if you don't take the opportunity to go outside your comfort zone, and what was outside her comfort zone? Given a public Bhagavatam class. That's outside our if you don't take the opportunity when given to go outside your comfort zone, then Krishna will make you uncomfortable in many other ways. And that's usually in the form of people who want to test our qualities, who criticize us, who mistreat us, who insult. So never neglect the opportunity. And that's one reason why I accepted this. I declined many times, but since, of course, we all have honor, dishonor, people who encourage us, people who discourage us, but this is one reason why I accepted, even though I'm not a public speaker. Is that, so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he emphasizes this point. So in an article entitled, this article can be found on the Bhaktivedanta Memorial Library. Has anyone heard of that website? Well, there's a website called the Bhaktivedanta Memorial Library, bvmlu.org. And they have different acharyas' articles. And in one of these articles, that's entitled, the title of this article by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it's entitled, quote, "Chant the transcendental word to others, or he will be eclipsed." And so in this article, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur verifies what we've been discussing so far. He says, quote, "It is imperative that we listen to and accept the word chanted by Sri Guru, and yet, even after we have been enabled to receive the word issuing from the lotus lips of Sri Guru, we still cannot retain him, for he tends to be eclipsed if he is not chanted to others. If we busy ourselves in any unnecessary pursuit by abstaining from chanting the word received from Sri Gurudev, we lose our connection to the eternal entity and render ourselves fit for welcoming sorrow." End quote. So not only should we hear, we should also chant it to others. Otherwise, we will fall into the category of saying, I'm not pure enough to glorify devotees, but I am pure enough to vilify devotees. So therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as mentioned, he says, I resist all pious deeds, but I'm very active and enthusiastic to perform wicked acts. So the modes of material nature, meaning lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, and vengeance, they make us very enthusiastic to perform so many wicked acts, either in our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And so, Srila Prabhupada, he also verifies this point. I didn't write it down, but for another reference, to reinforce this point, Prabhupada says we can listen to Bhagavatam for millions of years, but if we don't try to share it with others, he mentions this in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, chapter 24, and the chapter is entitled, quote, New Jagannath Puri. So for reference, you can also read that chapter. Now, how does this relate to today's verse? Getting to today's couple of verses. Now, it's very simple. So we're reading from the 10th canto, chapter 51, verses 30 through 31. So in verse 31, Muchukunda, he describes his purpose in life. And in text 30, he describes the purpose of life. So what's the difference between one's purpose in life and the purpose of life? Well, it's very simple. Because he's describing his purpose in life. I'm a king, a Sakshiya. And he describes what's the purpose of life? To hear about and speak about Krishna. That's the purpose of life. And so what does this mean in a more practical sense for us, or in a more vivid analogy? So this is a nice analogy. So a computer, a blender, a radio, They all have their individual purpose, right? They all function differently. In much the same way, we may be Brahmanas, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudras, Brahmacharis, etc., right? So this is our individual purpose. But a blender, a computer, a vacuum cleaner, a radio, they all have a common purpose. So anyone knows what that common purpose is? A compute, any electronic. Huh? To serve people. Anyone else? Anyone else? So they have a common purpose. They all need to be connected to their power source. So that's the common purpose. So this is what we're like. So therefore the Bhagavatam, and it says, Atapumbir Dvija Shrestha Arvanashram Vibhagasha Swanutitasha Dharmasa Samsidir Hari Toshanam. It describes that we have a purpose in life. And what's that purpose in life? Whatever our varn or ashram is. But it describes what the purpose of life is. And what is that? Samsidir Hari Toshana. And that means to please Lord Hari. And to the degree we please or connect to the Lord, just like any electronic, it has a different purpose, but the common purpose, it needs to be connected to its power source. So this verse says, Sam Siddhar Hari Toshan, the purpose of life is to hear about and speak about Krishna. And if we hear about and speak about Krishna, then he will remove our obstacles. And same thing, why is the computer attractive? Why is any electronic attractive? It's connected to its power source, right? If it's disconnected from its power source, it's unattractive. So it doesn't matter what purpose in life we have. We may be a wealthy businessman. We may be a street sweeper. We may be whatever. But if we're disconnected from Krishna, and what does it mean to connect to Krishna? What makes a person attractive? A computer's attractive if it's connected to power source. So what makes a person attractive? Yasyasti Bhatir Bhagavatiya Kinchana Sarvagunis. It describes that the result of connecting to Krishna is that we're supposed to develop good qualities. And these good qualities makes a person attractive. Is somebody very attractive if they're proud, if they're arrogant, if they're selfish? No. So people are attractive when they're humble, when they're tolerant, when they're forgiving, when they're selfless, right? And so this is the result. And we see that you may be the big politician or a big businessman, but if you're disconnected from Krishna, what does that mean? If you're disconnected from good qualities, what happens? You'll get yourself in so many trouble. You'll lose your fame, your fortune, your family, and your friends usually, right? So this is the importance of, a lot of times people say, I don't know what my purpose in life is. But our purpose in life sometimes change, right? According to our karma, our circumstances. Sometimes we're forced to accept a job that we don't want, right? In many times, right? So unless you're connected to Krishna with good qualities, then you'll find your circumstances are very intolerable, right? Because circumstances forces us to do things we don't want, right? By our destiny. So this is the importance of associating with devotees and trying to connect to Krishna, because life will not always go according to our plan, right? And so this is one point to consider. So Muchakunda, another point of Muchakunda, this is a very interesting point, is that if for those who do not know the past, I'll briefly summarize. Muchakunda was petitioned by the demigods. Muchakunda was born on earth. He was a human being. Yet, of course, he was in another yuga, which everyone in previous yugas were very powerful, right? But he was petitioned by the demigods to help them in the battle with the demons on the heavenly planets. So after Muchakunda had helped the demigods fight the demons for many, you could say, days, he says, I want to go back home. So what did the demigods tell him? Oh, my dear Muchakunda, life in heaven, it's much longer than life on earth. Our 1 day is your 6 months. So what does that mean? That means when Muchakunda wanted to return back to the earth, all of his family and friends had passed away. Now, how is this relevant to this verse today? Well, it describes that the difference between a Brahmana and a Kshatriya. One should be accepted as a Brahmana or a Kshatriya according to not one's family lineage, but one's qualification, one's merit, one's actions, right? So this is a very interesting point. I found that the demigods, from all points of view, are supposed to be more powerful than human beings, right? Are supposed to be more powerful. But the demigods are here petitioning a human being to come help them fight the demons. And this is actually a universal principle in not only the Bhagavatam, but in all spiritual teachings. And what is that teaching? The teaching is this: just because you're an adult, that does not mean you will be more empowered than a child. There's something called child prodigy, right? Just like there was a show I used to watch when I was growing up. It was called The Smart Guy. Anyone remembers that, The Smart Guy? So The Smart Guy was a 10-year-old boy who went to high school, and all the students would go to him for their tutoring sessions and their wisdom, actually. So what does that mean? That means just because we're an adult, that does not mean we'll be more empowered by a child. Just because we're a man, that does not mean we'll be more empowered than a woman. Just because we were born inside the Vedic tradition does not mean we will be more empowered than those outside the Vedic tradition. Hence, Srila Prabhupada's Western disciples. And just because we're a priest, that does not mean we will be more empowered than a prostitute. And so Krishna could give his mercy to anyone. Kali Kaleta Dharma, Krishna Nama Sankirtan, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tara Pravartana. This is the universal principles. It doesn't matter, in other words, it doesn't matter how pure we are, or how pure we think we are, or how wise we are, or how wise we think we are. If we're not given Krishna's mercy, then we will not be able to spread Krishna consciousness. On the other hand, it doesn't matter how impure we are, or how impure we think we are, how ignorant we are, or how ignorant we think we are. But if we are given Krishna's mercy, then we will be able to spread Krishna consciousness throughout the entire world. And therefore, this is precisely what this verse means. Kali Kaleta Dharma, Krishna Nama Sankirtan, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tara Pravartana. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, very famous verse, the Antya Lila, chapter 7, verse 11. And it says that if you're giving Krishna Shakti, his mercy, then it doesn't matter which your nationality, creed, color, class, gender, species, even monkeys in the Ramayana could spread Krishna consciousness. So Krishna could even empower ants, monkeys. They could even spread Krishna consciousness. So if he could empower monkeys and squirrels, then he can empower anyone. It doesn't matter what your background is. But we should not arrogantly think that Krishna's mercy is a monopoly. Because I'm a man, I have a monopoly on Krishna's mercy. Because I'm a Brahmana or born inside the Vedic tradition, I have a monopoly on Krishna's mercy. Because I'm an adult, I have a monopoly on Krishna's mercy more than a child. Look at Prahlad Maharaj, look at Dhruva Maharaj. They were all childs. They had Krishna Shakti Vina. So this is a universal principle. So therefore, there's a nice verse in the Holy Bible, and it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 25 through 29. And it says, "For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength." My dear brothers and sisters, think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many of you were influential, and not many of you were of noble birth. But God chose the foolish people of the world to shame the wise. He chose the weak people of the world to shame the strong. He chose the lowly people and the despised, just so no one may boast before him. So all these spiritual teachings are a lesson in humility, how to develop our humility with the Lord and how to develop our humility with others. And therefore we see that in any movie, what makes a great movie is when the underdog is empowered, right? If the person who's expected to win always wins, that's the dumbest movie ever. Nobody would want to see that. Movies are inspirational when the underdog becomes empowered. So one of my favorite movies is The Mighty Ducks. This year, Mighty Ducks, D1 and D2, D3 sucked. But it was so inspirational because it was a story of the underdog overcoming their obstacles. It's a story about hockey. I was like the only African American who actually took up hockey back then. So this is what we're meant to do and empower each other, encourage each other, is that Krishna's mercy is not a monopoly. It's not a monopoly. Whoever he gives his mercy to, we should be happy to. And sometimes he gives us his mercy, and sometimes he don't. Sometimes he gives his mercy to somebody else, and sometimes he doesn't. But we shouldn't hold the baton. Just like I was sharing with my friend the other day, and she expanded on this realization that I was meditating on. So when we're in a community, a devotional community, it's like a track and field team, or any team, any sports team. But let's take track and field, for example, track and field. So in track and field, there's something known as a relay race. What is a relay race? Does anyone know what the relay race is? Can anyone share with me? No volunteers? No? Okay. You're asking stupid questions, that's why. Yes. Bingo. So in any relay race of track and field, there's something called the baton. And what's the baton? The baton means that person is the leader at that moment. So in any track and field relay race, as far as the 400-meter relay race is concerned, what does this mean? That means there's 4 people on a relay race in a track and field 400 meters. So each person is supposed to run 100 meters and hand off the baton to the next person. That person is supposed to run 100 meters, etc. Now, this is what it's supposed to be like in any community, that we're supposed to give off the baton. Now, imagine, this is the realization my friend shared with me the other day. She says, if we're so attached to being a leader, to holding a baton, thinking Krishna's mercy is a monopoly, it's monopolizing my hands because I'm a man, I'm a brahmana, I'm an adult, etc. Then what happens? In a relay race, if only one person wants to run the entire track and field, that means they'll run out of gas and they'll lose the race. So anyone on that team will also lose. So the lesson is that we're all meant to push each other, give the baton, share the baton with each other. But to the degree we want to hold on to the baton, then we'll not only harm ourselves, we'll harm others who may be taking guidance from us. So this is a lesson. Hand off the baton. This is a community. Krishna gives his mercy and his spotlight. He wants to glorify all of his devotees. It's not like he wants to glorify one devotee. He's grateful to everyone. And so this is the lesson we could take in our life. And this is also, it's described, this is one reason why Haridas Thakur, so I'll share maybe a couple of more points and see if there's any other further discussion. But before I continue, does anyone have Vedabase? Can anyone pull up Vedabase on their phone? You have it here? Okay. So I would like you to read something after I describe. So this is a very important point. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, the Adi Leela, chapter 16, verse 237, it describes the purpose of Haridas Thakur, the Namacharya. Why did he descend in this world? Of course, there are many reasons why these great saints descend in this world, but here's one reason why it's described in this verse from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Adi Leela, or Adi Khan, chapter 16, verse 237. It says, Haridas Thakur was born in a low-class family to show that birth in a high caste or a good family is useless. If we're born in a low-class family, but we're connected to Krishna, then we can help others. If we're born in a high-class family, but we're disconnected from Krishna, we cannot help others. And so we see this, a practical example in Srila Prabhupada's own life. He begged some of his God brothers in the caste brahmanas, the Smarta brahmanas, please help me spread Krishna consciousness throughout the entire world. They were like, nah, I'm good. I'm situated right here. So Prabhupada says, well, I have an ambitious mission. I'm going to go to America and make brahmanas out of the Americans. And what did they tell them? Mission impossible. They're all engaging in breaking the 4 regular principles. Illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, gambling. They've been conditioned, habituated to do that throughout their entire life. There is absolutely no way that you will make them. into Brahmanas. So, Prabhupada says, what does Prabhupada says? He essentially says, I'm not really concerned about the odds. I'm more concerned about the gods. Krishna, the supreme Ekale Ishwara Krishna, Ada Sabra Britya, Yade Yache Nachoi Seitache, Kare Nitya. This verse says that our circumstances are not in control. Our poor health, like Srila Prabhupada, wasn't in control. Srila Prabhupada's old age wasn't in control. The winters of America weren't in control. And who's in control? Ekala Ishwara Krishna. Krishna's in control. Whatever he says goes. And whatever we say, it may or may not go. Why? Because we are not Ishwara Padama Krishna. We are not the supreme controller. So therefore, when Prabhupada, they were surprised. Oh, when Prabhupada actually had Americans and eventually the Europeans spread Krishna consciousness throughout the entire world. At first, the naysayer says, you cannot do it. But then when he did it, they said, you're not doing it right. So what is the lesson? That means our purpose in life should not be to please others. It should be Sam Siddhar Haritoshana, to please Krishna. And there's a saying, if you please God, it does not matter whom you displease. And if you displease him, it does not matter whom you please. And so this is the principle. Prabhupada, he upset so many people because he gave them Brahmin initiation, right? Unlike Srila Prabhupada, he adjusted according to the times. Even Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, women weren't allowed on the altar, but Prabhupada could understand, I have to adjust to the times because at the time of the 70s, it was also the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the hippie movement. So everyone should be treated equally. Otherwise, Krishna consciousness will completely flounder. So he adjusted to the time. So therefore, everyone should be given an equal opportunity in all services, But naturally, some Brahmanas criticized him for that. They said, first, you cannot spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world. And when you do, you're doing it the wrong way. So the conclusion is that our only concern should not what he said, not what she said, and not what they said. I could be wrong, but last time I checked, the Gita doesn't say he said, the Gita doesn't say she said, nor does the Gita say they said. The Gita says, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Krishna said. Now, why should our only concern should be not what he said, what she said, what they said, but what does Krishna say? Why? Because Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavam, Purusham, Shashvatam, Divyam, Adideva, Majavibum, Ahustam, Rishaya, Sarve, Deva, Shir, Nardasata, Asito, Deva, Lovyasa, Swayam, Shaiva, Bravishime. This says Param Brahma, Krishna is the supreme spirit, Param Dhamma, the supreme abode, resting place. Pavitram, he is pure. He could see things as they are. We cannot see things as they are. And Divyam, he is transcendental. So there's a saying, just as a spider is never entangled by its web, because the web comes from him, Krishna can never be entangled in the web of things that ordinarily would get us in sticky situations, right? The web of lust, anger, greed, pride, envy. So what does that mean? That means Krishna's vision is perfect. He cannot falsely accuse somebody or misjudge somebody because everything comes from him, like a spider web. Have you ever seen a spider say, oh my God, this web is too sticky? No, Krishna, he cannot become stuck in misjudging others. Why do we get in sticky situations? Because we misjudge others, just like, Prabhupada's godbrothers and some of the Samartha Brahmanas, they misjudged him, right? They misjudged him. And so therefore, the conclusion is that our only concern should be not what he said, not what she said, not what they said, but Sri Bhagavan Ubhasha, what does Krishna say? And he's grateful for those who try their best to spread Krishna consciousness. So there's a saying, if we try our best, then God will help us. If we try to be the best, then God will humble us. So Prabhupada, he tried his best. He understood, I have an instruction from my guru. Try your best to spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world. And therefore, he was given Krishna Shakti Vina Nahetara Pravartana. So this is the lesson we could take in our own life. Whenever we get an opportunity Even if it is, hypothetically speaking, in a spotlight, still, we should try our best. And why don't we accept any spotlight position? We may say it's falsely humility, but it's usually fear, right? I won't look good. You know, I'm not a public speaker. That's also one reason I refuse. I won't look good. There's much better speakers than me. No, but that's another form of ego. If we know we could do something well, we're especially better than others. Amen. I could do it better than others. But then what happens? Krishna has to humble us. He can empower somebody else to do anything and everything way better than us. So we should always be humble, always take the opportunity to go outside our comfort zone. And this is the topic for today, but since Sevananda left, does anyone have a database? I would take any other I would take any other comments now. Does anyone have anything else to share before I maybe share the last point? The last point. It's a very important point in regards to our community. Yeah, with database, but I would want to see if there's any comments, questions, criticisms, anything anyone else want to share before we end today's topic? No? Great. Well, not great for me. Not great for my... So, Prabhu, can you look up this verse? So I'll share this last point then. Hopefully, maybe you'll have something in regards to this last point I'll share. The 10th canto, chapter 25, verse 20. Let me know when you... 10, 25, 20. This is a very profound purport in this purport. So if anyone else wants to look at one on a device... It describes the result of truly connecting to Krishna. Very beautiful. And it's regarding the Govardhan Leela, which is coming up in a couple months. No, actually, there's only one mic. Would you like to read it? Here, would you have to take the mic? Unfortunately, one of the mics are not working. So...
Translation. Okay, translation says, the Lord then addressed the cowherd. Just the purport? Okay. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur provides the following insight in this regard. Ordinarily, a large cowherd community, which included many thousands of cows, calves, bulls, and so on, could not fit under the base of a medium-sized hill like Sri Govardhan. However, because the hill was in ecstasy, being touched by the hand of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it acquired inconceivable power and even felt the hundreds of deadly thunderbolts. It even felt the hundreds of deadly thunderbolts thrown upon its back by angry Indra, to be offerings of soft, fragrant flowers. At times, Sri Govardhan was not even aware that the thunderbolts were striking. From the Hari Vamsa, the Acharya has also quoted Sri Krishna himself as saying, I won't try to read that. Sri Govardhan can give shelter to all the three worlds. Sri Govardhan can give shelter to all the three worlds. What to speak of the simple land of Raj? Okay.
Now, this is a very beautiful purport, and there's 2 points I want to highlight. It's very beautiful. In the Govardhan Leela, so it mentions that there are 2 results of connecting to Krishna. When Krishna, or you could say when the Govardhan hill connected to Krishna, when it was touched by Krishna, there were 2 results. One result was that when Indra was raining thunderbolts on the Govardhan hill, it describes that these thunderbolts felt like garlands of flowers pouring down. And it almost didn't even feel the thunderbolts. So what does this mean? When we sincerely connect to Krishna, we're supposed to develop the good qualities. And what are the good qualities? That means when we're receiving negativity, which are like thunderbolts from others, then it should feel like flowers. Look at Jesus. Jesus was crucified, and he could still tolerate and forgive. We're only crucified by words. And now why can't we tolerate and forgive? That means we have to question, how sincerely am I truly connected to Krishna? And if not, if I'm feeling this negativity so much, then I maybe have to go deeper into connecting to Krishna. Just like when you want your TV to work, sometimes the connection is it's not so well, so therefore you have to call the cable guy. So much the same way, when we're feeling this negativity in our mind where we can't even chant our rounds, we can't even do our sadhana bhakti, then we have to call a cable guy. We have to seek the help of another devotee to connect us to Krishna, where this negativity won't harm us psychically or in our whole existence. The second result of properly connecting to Krishna, it says when Govardhan Hill was connected to Krishna, it could give shelter to the three worlds. It has such inconceivable potency that it would give shelter to the three worlds. So there's a saying, there's a book by one of Prabhupada's disciples, I believe Swarup Das Goswami. Prabhupada has built a house in which the whole world can live. So it describes that when the Govardhan connected to Krishna, it gives shelter to everyone. So what does that mean? When we're connected to Krishna, we give shelter. Of course, we have to be humble about our capacity, how many people we can give. But the lesson is that we're very accepting of everyone. Of course, there are nuances to that. But the tendency is that when we're disconnected to Krishna and when we're ruled by our lust, who do we want to give shelter to? Very beautiful women. If we're connected to our pride or in our education or our fame and our riches, then we want to connect to those people, right? No, but Krishna, who did Prabhupada give shelter to? Hippies. Who wants to give shelter to hippies? But that's who Krishna provided for Prabhupada. Prabhupada was like, he was looking for people from an external point of view more elevated, but that's not what Krishna provided. So, my dear Krishna, whatever you provide me, whoever you give me to help me in my mission of Krishna consciousness, I'm so grateful. And this is the lesson we learn from Ram Leela. In the Ramayana, it's described that when Ram was banished to a forest, his wife, Sita, was kidnapped. So he needed an army to help him, but he could not go back to his kingdom to get his army. Why? He was banished from the forest, into the forest. And he, as a proper Kshatriya king, he wanted to maintain his vow. I will not return to the kingdom until after 13 years. So who was going to help him in rescuing Sita? Monkeys! Monkeys! But what did Lord Rama say? Of course, he's God, but, he's playing the role of a human. Oh, my God. This is what you send me, Lord? Monkeys to help me rescue Sita? This is, he was like, I might as well do it by myself. No. In our Christian consciousness, we need the help of others. We can't do anything by ourselves. It's a relay race. But we hand the baton over. So whatever help Christians send us, then we should be very grateful. Not that we're looking for all-star help, because that's not always what Krishna will send us. He will not always send us the best personalities. So, but if we want to have the mentality that I'll only wait till Krishna sends me the best type of help, then you may not get the help you need. It's very simple. I'll end with this last analogy. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Antya Leela, chapter 5, verse 1, it describes that Lord Chaitanya is a physician, Vaidya, and he cures us of our main disease in this world, envy. So physician. So we're all looking for the best type of help. Our guru, right? So the guru, Lord Chaitanya, the Lord, they're compared to physicians. So if you have a disease of the blood, who's the first person you're going to go to? The physician, right? But in this pastime, in this chapter, same thing. A devotee named Pradyumna Mishra, he went to the supreme physician, Lord Chaitanya. He says, my dear Lord Chaitanya, I want to know about Krishna. Tell me about Krishna. So what did Lord Chaitanya says? He says, I do not know about Krishna. You have to go to a devotee named Ramananda Roy. So it's described in this pastime that Ramananda Roy seemed like he was a lusty womanizer. And when Pradyumna Mishra noticed this, he was thinking, he's not more pure than me, I'm more pure than him. So sometimes in our devotional life, this is the thought process we think. He shouldn't be teaching me Krishna consciousness. I should be teaching him. I'm more pure than him. But is this really in line with Trinadapi Sunicena? No, absolutely not. So, just as Praduma Mishra went to Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Physician, and he says, please help me. Tell me about Krishna. So sometimes, if we have a disease of the blood, we go to the physician, and what does the physician tell us? I cannot help you. You need the help of somebody who's not a PhD. You need your proper blood type, somebody that didn't go to medical school. So sometimes in our life, Krishna will send us to teach us humility, help that's out of our ordinary notion of what help should be. And the last two analogies I'll share, if you're stranded in the middle of the ocean and some boat comes to rescue you, you're not going to say, you're not an authorized Coast Guard. I'll wait for the Coast Guard and drown to death. No. Or if you're on the side of the ditch and you got in a car accident and the latest Good Samaritan comes to help you, you're not going to say, I'm waiting for the authorized paramedic and the authorized doctor to help me. No, whatever help Krishna sends you, you're grateful for. Now, this is a very gross physical example, and we're forced to be humble when we're put in these situations, right? But it's more easier to be arrogant on the subtle spiritual platform. But the conclusion is that if we're not grateful for the help that the Lord sends us, however inferior we think it is to us, which we shouldn't, then we will not get the help we need, and therefore we'll continue to be disconnected from Krishna. And what is that result of that? Complaining about so many things. So when Govardhan Hill was connected to Krishna, it felt the thunderbolts feel like flowers. And not only that, it was so loving to everyone. So the result is that if we're not connected to Krishna, we'll complain about so many little things. And so therefore, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila chapter 14, verse 1, it says, things that are very difficult to perform become easy for one who remembers the Lord. But even easy things that are easy to perform become difficult for one who does not remember the Lord. So if we're connected to the Lord, very difficult things become easy, like being crucified like Jesus Christ. No big deal. But if we don't remember the Lord, even somebody ignores us, it can ruin our whole year. Our whole year is completely. So this is a lesson we could take in our own life. So I guess we can end our topics. Is there anything else, Mother Krishna Archana Mataji, anything else? Or otherwise we could end there. That's a game show melody called Jeopardy. Excuse me for I don't need a microphone. There is one point I wanted to share, but I will not because I think we've gone long enough. But anything else? We're all anxiously waiting, Mother Krishna's Archana. Yeah. Oh, you didn't know we were waiting on you? Here, since we don't have one mic. No.
Okay, I'll bring it over in a minute. So in reflecting on the various points that you'd raised, I think and you were weaving it throughout the class, the point that, the necessity of seeing the connection with Krishna and understanding that he's in control, and, you were elaborating that sometimes persons may carry a lot of negativity from finding themselves perhaps not doing the service they were performing or being transferred to, you gave one example, or being transferred to a different service. So that capacity to see Krishna being in control of where one finds oneself or the position one finds oneself in often seems to be made nil because of the emotional component of adjustment and some of the difficulties that come with, finding oneself not performing a service one has been performing. So it seems that some of the lessons you were referring to are often emotional lessons. Anyway, I don't know. It's because that's always seems the biggest obstacle in some unexpected circumstance or unexpected shift.
I'll try to keep this brief, but thank you so much for your question. I very much appreciate it. And it was in harmony with some things I was meditating on recently. And what is that? The chapter 14 of the Bhagavad Gita describes we can live our life in two ways. We can live a life that's emotional, or we can live a life that's devotional. And what does that mean? There's a phrase, emotional roller coaster. Emotional roller coaster. And so what does that mean? Has anyone ever been on a roller coaster before? Can anyone raise their hand? Roller coaster? Yes. Oh, mind you have? You sure? Okay. So on a roller coaster, is it possible to read a book, to do japa, to type on your computer, to do anything productive? No, it's not. So therefore, chapter 14 of the Gita, Krishna says, Mamcha yo avyabhichanena bhati yogena sevate saguna samati taitam brahma bhuyaya kalpade. He says, you should stay grounded. And what does that mean? In the previous verse, he describes what that means to Arjuna. Treat honor and dishonor the same. Happiness and distress, praise and blame, victory, defeat. Treat them as the same, because if our happiness, if our staying grounded is only dependent on being respected, then what does that mean? Let's say nobody ever respects us. We'll always be on an emotional roller coaster. That means we'll never engage in devotional service. You know what you did to me. It's like we'll never chant our rounds. We'll never read the Bhagavatam. We'll never do anything spiritually productive. In the material world, although people are on the emotional roller coaster, they have to go to work, right? But they have to pay their bills. But still, just to get off the emotional roller coaster, what do people do? They take drugs, alcohol, painkillers. They engage in illicit sex. And that's not just because, I'm lusty, but to get off this emotional roller coaster, right? But we're supposed to, so Krishna teaches us how to stay grounded. How to stay grounded. Just like when there's two people at an amusement park, the paying customers and the paid workers. So the paying customers are, they have everything out of control. The paid customers have everything under control. So in much the same way, we're meant to learn how to stay grounded and control our emotions. And if we don't control our emotions, that's our choice. There's a wealth of knowledge to explain how to control your emotions. Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagava Shrava Maturam Vas Srimutir Shradaya Savan. Especially avoiding the first offense, Vaishnava Parad. That's one thing that keeps us on an emotional roller coaster. And this is precisely why it doesn't matter how people treat us. That's why we have to learn how to, we never know whether people are mistreating us due to Krishna's, Mahamaya or Yogamaya. Sometimes Krishna will send people to mistreat us under the influence of Yogamaya, but that does not mean they're being offensive. It means that Krishna is testing us. So we should always see it that way, whether it's true or not. And this is an example of it. Quickly go through the example of it. So sometimes in a community, just like Govardhan Hill, when it was connected to Krishna, it was so accepting of everyone. But in a community, we find that people are not so accepting of everyone. We feel like people please leave. But this is a test by a Christian. We should take this as a test, because in the final analysis, we could be humble with ourselves. We do that sometimes in our own life, right? There's people we could connect to, people we would rather like stay away from, right? So, but there's a few examples of it. Hanuman, the famous story of Hanuman, when the squirrel tried to help build the bridge, he was sweeping pebbles and dust to help Lord Ram. Then what did Hanuman do? He's like, my dear squirrel, you're wasting your time. Get out of here. Move out the way. So sometimes devotees who's supposed to be on the same team may tell us, your service is worthless. We don't need you anymore. So there's also a similar pastime. This is from the Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhya Khan, chapter 21. It's the story where Devananda Pandit, he was supposed to be a speaker of Bhagavatam, a celibate monk his whole life. He was teaching many different students Bhagavatam. So when Srivas Thakur entered the Bhagavatam class of Devananda Pandit, Srivas Thakur, he was crying in love of God. But Devananda Pandit, he was like, this person, he's crying, he's sighing, he's making so much noise. He's ruining my poetic recitation of Bhagavatam class. He was thinking, I can't hear myself speak. So his students became so annoyed that they literally grabbed Srivas Thakur by the hands and feet and threw him out of the Bhagavatam class. So just as Hanuman tried to excommunicate the squirrel, so also Devananda Pandit, he also excommunicated Srivas Thakur. Now, the important lesson in this regard is that we should learn from the squirrel and we should learn from Srivas Thakur. Now, Lord Rama, he chastised Hanuman. In Lord Chaitanya, he chastised Devananda Pandit. So we can expect in our life, if people do not accept us in a devotional community because of ego, just like Hanuman had ego, Devananda Pandit had ego, then we could expect the Lord to chastise them. But at the same time, we should also take the lesson from the squirrel and from Srivas Thakur. The squirrel never went on Facebook. He never went on Dandavats. He never went on Twitter to criticize Hanuman, nor did Srivas Thakur. Now, the interesting thing about this Devananda Pandit pastime is that how did Lord Chaitanya criticize him? Actually, Lord Chaitanya was not present at the time when Devananda Pandit excommunicated Srivas Thakur. So Srivas Thakur, he was Trinada Pisunichain, more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. He offered respect to Devananda Pandit, and he didn't expect any respect in return. What does that mean? He never went on the internet, and he never slammed Devananda Pandit. So if he didn't slam, how was it possible that Lord Chaitanya criticized him and chastised Devananda Pandit? He wasn't present there. Because Ishwara Sarva Bhutanam Hridesha Arjuna Tishati, Krishna is situated within the heart of everyone, and he sees everything. And not only that, in chapter 7 of the Gita, Krishna says, Vedaham Samatitani Vartamanani Cha Arjuna Babishani Cha Bhutani Mam Tu Veda Nakashana. Krishna says, I know everything that's happened in the past, present, and future. So what does that mean? That means if justice is meant to be served, then Krishna will handle it, and we don't need to worry about it. So we take care of the love, and Krishna will take care of the justice, if justice is meant to be served. But sometimes our situation is like Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was excommunicated from the Jagannath Puri temple. But Lord Chaitanya would come, not only would Lord Chaitanya come and see Haridas Thakur, but he will also go in the Jagannath temple and associate with those devotees. But Haridas Thakur never said, hey, yo, Lord Chaitanya, what's up? I thought I was VIP, Namacharya. How come you won't invite me into the... So the lesson is that Haridas Thakur had the personal association of God himself. What need is there to go into the Jagannath Puri temple? So in much the same way, we should recognize that Krishna has given us so many blessings through different devotee association, through the holy name, so much blessings. If some people don't like you, so what? So what? But we can understand, so this is why we should always be Trinada Pisunichaina. If there's justice that's meant to be served, Krishna will handle it. So we focus on the love, and Krishna will focus on the justice. So thank you, everyone. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.